He walked into the bustling cafe with the air of someone who owned half the city, and every head in the room turned as his tailored suit caught the light from the large windows. The manager behind the counter glanced nervously at the door, knowing that regulars rarely carried such an aura of authority and wealth in their every step. As the man approached the counter, his eyes scanned the room with precision, and then they froze on a young woman balancing a tray of steaming coffees with a smile that seemed both familiar and entirely unexpected. She moved gracefully yet hurriedly, weaving through tables and avoiding the clatter of dishes like someone who had done this job for years without complaint. When she caught sight of him, her eyes widened in disbelief, and she nearly dropped a cup of cappuccino, which would have ruined the morning for a customer but also perhaps ruined her composure. He smiled faintly, recognizing her immediately from years ago back in school when they had been inseparable friends, laughing over trivial jokes and sharing secrets that only young hearts could treasure. The manager noticed a sudden change in her demeanor and followed her gaze to see the man standing there with his confident posture and an expression that seemed to say he had not changed at all. She rushed over to him, apologizing for being clumsy with a nervous laugh, and he reassured her that it was perfectly fine, noticing that she seemed both startled and thrilled to see him. Memories flooded back as he remembered her quirky sense of humor and the way she used to brighten every classroom with her energy and creativity, and now he was seeing her in a completely new light. He asked for a cup of coffee and then casually mentioned that he had just returned from a business meeting overseas, and she nodded while trying to maintain her professional composure. The manager, who had been watching every movement with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, leaned closer to the bartender, whispering who the man might be and why he seemed to make the waitress so nervous. As she brought his coffee over, she finally found the courage to speak more freely and told him how life had been challenging since school and how she had taken this job to support herself while pursuing her dreams. He listened attentively, fascinated by the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke and the passion that she carried despite the struggles she had faced, which seemed to remind him of the person she had always been. He mentioned that he had started a company that had grown beyond his wildest dreams, and he had traveled the world meeting influential people, but none of that had prepared him for seeing her again after all these years. They began reminiscing about old school memories, laughing quietly at the inside jokes only they could understand, and the manager watched in amazement as the two seemed to reconnect as if no time had passed at all. The waitress admitted that she had often wondered what had become of him, and had secretly followed news about his successes online, but had never imagined they would meet in such an ordinary place. He leaned back in his chair, enjoying the moment, and offered to pay for her lunch even though she insisted it was unnecessary because he wanted to take care of her in some way now that he had found her again. The manager cleared his throat awkwardly, feeling out of place in a conversation that seemed deeply personal yet could not be ignored because the billionaire's presence changed the atmosphere of the cafe instantly. She smiled nervously, realizing that her humble attire and the ordinary job could not diminish the admiration he seemed to carry for her, and he complimented her strength and resilience in words that she could hardly believe. As customers continued to chatter around him, he felt a sudden urge to learn everything about her life in school, and she responded with openness, telling him about her ambitions, her struggles, and the people who had shaped her journey. The manager tried to intervene politely, asking if they could perhaps move to a quieter area, but he shook his head, indicating that he wanted to stay where they were, feeling that fate had orchestrated this reunion perfectly. She laughed as she poured him another cup of coffee, recalling a prank they had pulled together in school, and he joined in the laughter, feeling a sense of warmth that had been missing from his high-powered life. Minutes passed like hours as they shared stories of triumphs and failures, of love and loss, and of dreams that had either been achieved or deferred, and each word seemed to tighten the invisible bond that had always existed between them. He finally asked her why she had never reached out during the years, and she admitted that she had feared that time and circumstance would make their friendship impossible to rekindle. He reassured her gently that some connections were timeless, and that he valued the honesty and courage it took for her to speak so openly now in front of strangers who had no idea of the story unfolding. The manager, growing increasingly stunned, realized that the billionaire's interest in the waitress went beyond casual curiosity, and that he was genuinely invested in her happiness, which was unusual for someone of his status. She blushed slightly at his attention, but welcomed it because it felt sincere and genuine, something she had rarely experienced with anyone in the adult world. He told her about a philanthropic project he was planning and suggested that her insight could be invaluable to it, and she was taken aback by the thought that someone who had once been just a friend now sought her guidance professionally. The two of them continued talking while the cafe staff tried to manage their duties, quietly watching the unlikely scene of a billionaire and his old school friend connecting in real time. The manager, still in disbelief, muttered under his breath, wondering how such a casual encounter could carry such emotional weight and how it might affect the future of both of them. She finally asked him if he had changed much over the years, and he chuckled, admitting that success had taught him many things, but it had not altered the essence of who he was, and he hoped she felt the same. She nodded with a smile that reached her eyes, and he felt a surge of nostalgia mixed with excitement because he realized that this meeting could be the start of a renewed friendship, or perhaps something even deeper. He invited her to accompany him to a private event that evening, suggesting that it would be a perfect chance to catch up away from the crowded cafe, and she hesitated only briefly before agreeing. The manager could hardly believe his ears as he processed the idea of one of his waitresses attending an exclusive event with a man of such prominence, and he wondered what she must be thinking. As she prepared to leave her shift, he offered to help carry her tray of dishes to the kitchen, which she accepted with a shy gratitude that made him smile warmly. They stepped outside together into the sunlight, and the air seemed to hum with possibility as the city bustled around them, unaware of the quiet reunion that had taken place inside the cafe. He asked about her family, and she shared stories of siblings and parents with laughter and pride in her voice, and he responded with empathy and genuine curiosity, feeling a bond that time had only strengthened. She mentioned how she had often imagined what it would be like to see him again, and he admitted that he had done the same, wondering if fate would ever give them this chance to reconnect. The manager watched from the doorway as she walked beside him with a mixture of awe and skepticism, realizing that life could be stranger than fiction, and that sometimes the universe orchestrated moments beyond explanation. They stopped at a corner cafe table outside to enjoy the mild weather, and he offered her a pastry she accepted with a grateful smile, and they began discussing small trivial matters that only deepened their connection. He asked if she had any aspirations that she felt she could not pursue, and she admitted a few secret dreams, and he promised that he would support her however he could, whether through advice, connections, or simply encouragement. The conversation flowed effortlessly as though no years had passed, and each anecdote shared seemed to weave them closer together, while the cafe and street around them faded into the background. She expressed admiration for his achievements, but also reminded him that success without meaningful relationships were hollow, and he agreed, realizing that reconnecting with her felt more important than any business deal. He offered to take her on a small tour of the city, highlighting some of his favorite hidden spots, and she agreed with excitement and curiosity, eager to spend more time with him outside the professional setting. The manager continued to gape at the scene, unable to reconcile the ordinary workday with the extraordinary encounter unfolding before him, feeling a mix of envy and amazement. They walked down the bustling street, talking and laughing freely as if no social barriers existed between them, and the world around seemed to pause to witness the reunion. She told him about her struggles to maintain independence while pursuing her dreams, and he listened with the patience and empathy that came naturally to someone who had learned the value of true friendship. He told her about the challenges of managing his empire and the loneliness that often accompanied such responsibility, and she responded with understanding and an encouraging presence that made him feel grounded. The day passed quickly as they moved from one spot to another, sharing stories, experiences, and aspirations, and both realized that the bond they once shared had never truly faded. As the sun began to set, he invited her to dinner at an exclusive restaurant, and she hesitated only because of the difference in social standing, but he reassured her that it was about enjoying time together, not about status. They dined with laughter and conversation flowing effortlessly as though they were old friends rediscovering a connection that had been paused rather than lost. The manager finally shook his head in disbelief, realizing that he had just witnessed something remarkable, a reunion that transcended social norms and expectations. By the time the evening ended, they had made plans to meet again soon, and she felt a sense of hope and excitement she had not felt in years, while he felt a satisfaction beyond any material success. The manager could not help but remark to himself that life had a way of surprising people when they least expected it, and that sometimes the most ordinary places held the most extraordinary moments. She walked away with a smile that lingered long after she left the cafe, knowing that reconnecting with him was perhaps the best unexpected gift she could have received. He watched her go, feeling a warmth in his chest that no business triumph or luxury could replace, and he knew that the friendship they had shared in youth was ready to blossom once more into something meaningful. The manager closed the door behind her and shook his head, still processing the surreal encounter, while the city continued on, unaware of the quiet magic that had occurred in his cafe that day. Later that evening, he walked through the city streets with her at his side, noticing how the lights reflected in her eyes and how effortlessly their conversation flowed as if no time had passed at all. She talked about the little victories she had achieved in her life and the challenges she had overcome, and he listened intently, admiring her resilience and the grace with which she handled every obstacle. They arrived at the restaurant, and he opened the door for her with a gentlemanly smile that made her heart flutter with a mixture of nostalgia and excitement. The hostess led them to a quiet corner table, and he requested the finest wine without pretension, explaining that tonight was about them reconnecting rather than about extravagance. She laughed softly at his words, feeling both comforted and amazed at how someone so successful could remain so grounded and attentive to the simple joys of life. As they dined, they shared stories about travels, adventures, and people who had influenced them over the years, and each story seemed to reveal new layers of personality and understanding. She confessed moments of doubt and fear during her journey, and he reassured her with encouragement and warmth, letting her know that he valued honesty and vulnerability above all else. The manager, who had been observing earlier, could hardly believe the transformation that had occurred in her demeanor and the glow that seemed to radiate from her as she spoke freely and confidently. He complimented her intelligence, creativity, and strength in ways that made her blush, but also strengthened the bond that had always existed between them in school. They reminisced about teachers and classmates, recalling funny incidents and embarrassing moments that now seemed endearing, and added to the richness of their shared history. She mentioned a few regrets, and he gently reminded her that life was a collection of experiences, and that even the mistakes and missteps had shaped her into the remarkable person she was today. He told her stories of his early struggles in business, of the mistakes he had made, and the lessons he had learned along the way, emphasizing that success was never instant or effortless. She listened, fascinated by the contrast between the confident billionaire and the humble man who remembered his roots and valued the people who had influenced his journey. The waiter brought dessert, and she jokingly commented on how indulgent it was for someone so serious about business to enjoy such simple pleasures, and he laughed heartily, agreeing with her observation. As they finished dinner, he suggested a walk along the nearby river to enjoy the city lights reflecting on the water, and she agreed, appreciating the spontaneity and thoughtfulness of his gesture. They strolled side by side, sharing thoughts, dreams, and ideas for future projects, and she felt a renewed sense of inspiration and confidence in her own abilities. He asked her if she had ever considered pursuing further education or career shift, and she admitted that she had dreamed about it, but had lacked the resources and guidance to take the leap. He offered to mentor her in any way she felt comfortable, explaining that he believed in nurturing talent and supporting potential, and she was deeply touched by the sincerity in his words. The manager could hardly believe the scene. If he had told someone earlier that a waitress would be walking the streets with a billionaire, they would have laughed, but the reality was unfolding right before his eyes. She expressed gratitude for his attention and encouragement, and he reassured her that he had never forgotten her, and that seeing her again was a reminder of the meaningful connections that transcended time and circumstance. They talked about hobbies, passions, and personal projects that had brought joy into their lives despite professional pressures and life challenges, and each revelation brought them closer emotionally. The evening grew later, and the air turned cooler, but neither of them seemed to notice, absorbed in conversation, and the sheer delight of rediscovering a long-lost friendship. He suggested they sit on a bench overlooking the city skyline to enjoy a moment of quiet reflection, and she agreed, settling beside him with a contented sigh. They watched the lights flicker in the distance, and she shared a memory from school that made them both laugh uproariously, drawing curious glances from passers-by, but neither cared for the world around them. He asked her what she valued most in life, and she spoke passionately about family, friendship, integrity, and personal growth, and he nodded in agreement, recognizing the depth of her character and the clarity of her vision. She asked him about the pressures of wealth and influence, and he spoke honestly about the loneliness and responsibility that accompanied his success, but emphasized that true joy came from meaningful connections like the one they were rebuilding. They shared a comfortable silence, looking out over the water, and she realized how rare it was to feel completely understood and appreciated by someone without judgment or expectation. He reached out and gently took her hand, a gesture that spoke volumes about trust, friendship, and perhaps the beginning of something more, and she squeezed it lightly, feeling a warmth she had long forgotten. The manager back at the cafe wondered what would happen next and whether this unexpected reunion would lead to opportunities neither of them could have imagined, but he knew he had witnessed something extraordinary. She confided in him about past heartbreaks and setbacks, and he listened without interruption, providing support, insight, and empathy, demonstrating the qualities that had made him successful yet deeply human. They walked back toward her apartment, discussing plans for the next day and ways they could support each other professionally and personally, and she felt a renewed sense of possibility and hope. He promised to stay in touch and suggested they meet regularly to continue sharing ideas, experiences, and encouragement, and she agreed, excited to build a future connection grounded in trust and mutual respect. As they reached her building, he thanked her for an incredible evening, and she returned the sentiment, expressing how much it meant to her to reconnect after all these years. He watched her enter her apartment and felt a profound sense of fulfillment, realizing that true wealth was measured not in money or power, but in the quality of relationships and the moments that brought genuine joy. The manager finally closed up the cafe, feeling inspired and amazed at how ordinary life could intersect with extraordinary circumstances in ways that changed lives and perspective forever. The following morning, she returned to work at the cafe, feeling a renewed energy and confidence that did not go unnoticed by co-workers or regulars who commented on her radiant smile and positive demeanor. He sent a thoughtful message expressing gratitude for the evening and excitement about their plans for future meetings, and she responded warmly, feeling a connection that was only beginning to grow stronger. Their friendship began to flourish with shared lunches, walks, and discussions about work, dreams, and personal goals, and she realized that she had found a mentor and companion in the most unexpected way. The manager watched with a mixture of pride and astonishment as she carried herself with newfound confidence and joy, knowing that the billionaire's influence had opened doors she had only dreamed about. They began collaborating on a small philanthropic project, combining his resources and her creativity and insight, and the process brought them even closer while making a meaningful impact in their community. She discovered skills and talent she had never fully realized, and he was continually impressed by her intelligence, resilience, and dedication as their professional and personal relationship evolved seamlessly. Even casual encounters became opportunities for shared laughter, inspiration, and reflection, and each moment together deepened the respect and admiration they had for each other. Their bond was strengthened by mutual understanding and trust, and the shared experiences of past struggles, triumphs, and lessons learned, creating a foundation for a relationship that could endure the test of time. As the weeks passed, they became inseparable in both professional and personal spheres, and she felt a sense of security and excitement she had not known since childhood. He continued to mentor, guide, and support her, offering wisdom and encouragement, while also learning from her fresh perspective, enthusiasm, and unwavering determination. The manager continued to watch in amazement as she flourished under his guidance, and the dynamic of their connection seemed to inspire everyone around them who witnessed even the briefest interaction. Together they navigated challenges and celebrated victories both large and small, and each success reinforced their belief in the power of friendship, loyalty, and shared vision. She felt a renewed sense of purpose and ambition, knowing that she had someone who believed in her fully, and he felt a joy and fulfillment in supporting someone he truly respected and cared about. Their partnership grew stronger with each passing day, and a combination of her creativity, his resources, and their shared history created opportunities that neither could have anticipated alone. The manager could not deny the change in her demeanor, confidence, and energy, and he began to see the extraordinary influence that a meaningful relationship could have on an individual's life trajectory. They spent evenings discussing dreams, aspirations, and plans for the future, often laughing, reminiscing, or contemplating possibilities, and each conversation further solidified the bond that had been rekindled after so many years. She realized that reconnecting with him was more than a chance encounter. It was a turning point in her life that opened doors to personal growth, professional achievement, and emotional fulfillment. He recognized that finding her again was not just a reunion of old friends, but an opportunity to build something meaningful grounded in trust, understanding, and shared ambition. Their story became an example of how unexpected encounters could transform lives, inspire change, and foster deep connections that transcended social status, circumstance, and the passage of time. The manager finally accepted that life sometimes defied expectation in ways that were both unpredictable and profoundly moving, and he felt privileged to witness a reunion that would shape the futures of both individuals. She continued to balance her work at the cafe with her growing professional and personal commitments, and felt empowered by the support, guidance, and belief of someone who had always seen her potential. He remained a constant presence, offering mentorship, companionship, and encouragement, while also learning from her resilience, creativity, and unwavering commitment to personal and professional growth. Together, they navigated complexities of life with mutual respect, admiration, and affection, and their relationship deepened in ways that were both enriching and transformative for each of them. The manager often reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple encounter in his cafe, and how it had blossomed into a story of reconnection, rediscovery, and remarkable transformation. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the unexpected reunion that had rekindled a long-lost friendship, and opened new pathways for opportunity, growth, and meaningful connection. He felt fulfillment in knowing that the reunion had allowed both of them to rediscover each other and create a future rich with possibilities, inspiration, and shared purpose. The following weeks felt like a dream as she balanced her work at the cafe with the exciting new opportunities he had opened for her, and each day brought new discoveries about her own potential and resilience. He invited her to attend conferences, business meetings, and social gatherings where she felt out of place at first, but gradually realized that her insight, intelligence, and perspective were valued by those around her. She discovered that people listened when she spoke and respected her ideas, and he watched proudly as she grew more confident and assertive in every situation without losing her warmth or authenticity. Their friendship evolved naturally into a partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual admiration, and she felt a joy and fulfillment she had never imagined possible. The manager noticed a change in her demeanor, confidence, and energy, and often found himself marveling at how far she had come since that fateful day when the billionaire walked into his cafe. He began sharing more personal aspects of his life with her, including the pressures, loneliness, and responsibilities that came with his success, and she listened with empathy and understanding, offering support in ways that surprised even him. She shared her own dreams, fears, and aspirations, and he encouraged her to pursue them relentlessly, reminding her that talent coupled with dedication could overcome nearly any obstacle. Together, they embarked on a philanthropic project aimed at supporting young people who lack resources and guidance, and her creativity and insight combined with his resources and influence created a meaningful impact in the community. They spent long evenings discussing ideas, strategies, and plans for the future, often laughing, reminiscing, or contemplating possibilities, and each discussion strengthened their bond and their shared vision. She realized that reconnecting with him had not only rekindled a cherished friendship, but had also opened doors to personal growth, professional achievement, and emotional fulfillment she had never thought possible. He recognized that finding her again was not just a reunion of old friends, but an opportunity to build something lasting grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and shared ambition. The manager often reflected on the extraordinary events that had unfolded in his cafe, and how an ordinary day had turned into a life-changing encounter that transformed the futures of two people. She continued to impress everyone she met with her intelligence, creativity, and poise, and he felt a profound sense of pride and satisfaction, knowing that he had been part of a journey to rediscover her own potential. They spent weekends exploring new projects, cities, and experiences together, learning from each other, and growing in ways that neither could have anticipated alone. Her confidence blossomed as she navigated new opportunities and challenges, and he admired her courage, determination, and unwavering commitment to personal and professional growth. The manager often caught glimpses of their interactions and realized that their bond went far beyond friendship, mentorship, or professional collaboration. It was a rare and genuine connection that inspired everyone around them. She reflected on how far she had come since that first unexpected meeting, and felt grateful for the chance to rebuild a connection that had been paused but never truly lost. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that reconnecting with her had allowed both of them to rediscover old joys, create new experiences, and build a meaningful future together. Together, they celebrated successes both big and small, recognizing that the journey mattered as much as the destination, and that their partnership was rooted in shared respect, trust, and admiration. The manager finally accepted that life sometimes defied expectation in ways that were both unpredictable and profoundly moving, and he felt privileged to witness a story that exemplified reconnecting, rediscovery, and transformation. She continued to inspire those around her with her passion, energy, and perspective, and he continued to support, guide, and encourage her in ways that strengthened their bond and deepened their friendship. Their collaboration grew beyond initial expectations, and they began taking on projects that combined his resources and her insight to make a difference in ways neither had imagined possible. The manager often marveled at the evolution of their relationship from a chance encounter in his cafe to a powerful partnership that touched the lives of many and inspired those who witnessed it. She realized that reconnecting with him had been a turning point in her life, opening doors to opportunities, experiences, and relationships that she had only dreamed about, and he felt joy knowing that he had been part of it. They spent quiet evenings discussing dreams, aspirations, and plans for the future, often reflecting on how a single encounter had transformed the trajectory of their lives in ways that seemed almost magical. She grew more confident in her abilities and more assertive in her ambitions, knowing that she had someone who believed in her fully and supported her every step of the way. He valued her perspective, creativity, and determination, and felt a profound sense of satisfaction in watching her flourish professionally and personally while also learning from her insights and experiences. The manager continued to observe the remarkable transformation and realized that the encounter had not only changed her life, but also enriched the lives of everyone who interacted with them. She continued to balance her everyday work responsibilities with new opportunities and challenges, feeling empowered by the support, guidance, and belief of someone who saw her true potential. He remained a constant presence in her life, providing mentorship, companionship, and encouragement, while also appreciating the lessons and perspectives she brought to his world. Their shared experiences built a deep connection based on trust, understanding, and mutual respect, creating a foundation that could withstand the challenges of life and career. The manager often reflected on the extraordinary series of events that began with a simple visit to his cafe and how it had blossomed into a story of reconnecting, rediscovery, and meaningful transformation. She felt gratitude for the unexpected reunion that had rekindled a long-lost friendship, opened new doors for opportunity growth, and inspired a renewed sense of hope and ambition. He felt fulfillment in knowing that their connection had allowed both of them to rediscover each other, create a meaningful future, and experience joy, inspiration, and partnership beyond measure. Together they navigated the complexities of life, work, and relationships with mutual respect, admiration, and affection, and each step of their journey reinforced the strength of their bond. The manager finally realized that sometimes ordinary moments held extraordinary potential, and that a single encounter could set in motion a series of events that changed lives forever. She continued to flourish in every aspect of her life, feeling empowered, inspired, and valued, while he continued to provide support, guidance, and encouragement in ways that deepened their connection. Their story became a testament to the power of friendship, reconnecting, and the unexpected opportunities that life sometimes offers when least expected. She recognized that her encounter with him was not simply a reunion, but the beginning of a new chapter filled with promise, inspiration, and meaningful connection. He cherished the trust, respect, and admiration they shared and felt joy in knowing that their friendship had grown into something extraordinary and enduring. The manager continued to marvel at the transformation he had witnessed in her confidence, energy, and outlook on life, realizing that the impact of that chance meeting would ripple through both of their lives for years to come. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, ambition, and fulfillment, knowing that reconnecting with him had opened doors, opportunities, experiences, and personal growth she had never imagined. He felt profound satisfaction and joy knowing that their friendship and partnership had created a meaningful difference in their lives and offered inspiration to those around them. Together they built a future filled with trust, support, collaboration, and inspiration, recognizing that the bond they shared was rare and deeply valuable. The manager finally understood that life sometimes orchestrated extraordinary events in the most unexpected places, and that a single encounter could transform futures in profound and lasting ways. She continued to embrace her talents, dreams, and ambitions, feeling supported, guided, and inspired by someone who had seen her potential from the very beginning. He continued to provide mentorship, guidance, and encouragement, while also learning from her creativity, perspective, and resilience, creating a dynamic partnership that enriched both of their lives. Their connection deepened with each passing day, growing stronger through shared experiences, support, and mutual respect, and they looked forward to the possibilities of future held. The manager reflected on the unlikely journey that had begun in his cafe and marveled at how an ordinary day could lead to such extraordinary and life-changing outcomes. She felt immense gratitude for the reunion that had rekindled a long-lost friendship, opened doors to new opportunities, and inspired hope and ambition in ways she had never thought possible. He felt fulfillment and joy knowing that their relationship had grown into a meaningful partnership built on trust, respect, admiration, and shared purpose. Together they embraced the journey ahead, facing challenges, celebrating successes, and supporting each other with unwavering dedication and affection. The manager finally accepted that extraordinary transformations often began with a simple act of connection, and that life had a way of surprising people when they least expected it. She continued to thrive in her personal and professional life, feeling inspired, empowered, and supported while he continued to provide guidance, mentorship, and companionship. Their story became a testament to the power of reconnecting, rediscovery, and meaningful human connection, and served as a reminder that life could change in remarkable ways. They continued to build a future filled with shared experiences, dreams, and opportunities, knowing that the bond they had rekindled was rare and enduring, and would guide them through every challenge and triumph. The manager reflected on the incredible journey that began with a chance encounter in his cafe, and realized that sometimes ordinary moments carried the seeds of extraordinary transformation. She embraced each day with renewed energy, confidence, and purpose, knowing that reconnecting with him had created opportunities, personal growth, and inspiration she had never imagined. He cherished the friendship, partnership, and trust they shared, feeling joy, fulfillment, and excitement for the future, knowing that their connection was meaningful, lasting, and profoundly transformative. Together, they moved forward hand in hand with a sense of possibility, hope, and mutual support, ready to face whatever challenges and opportunities life would present. The manager smiled quietly to himself, knowing that he had witnessed a story of reconnect, rediscovery, and transformation that would influence not only their lives but also inspire all who heard it. She felt gratitude, excitement, and optimism as she embraced the possibilities ahead, confident that the bond they had rekindled would continue to enrich her life in every imaginable way. He felt joy, pride, and fulfillment, knowing that their friendship had evolved into a partnership rooted in trust, respect, admiration, and shared purpose, creating a foundation for lasting happiness and success. Together, they looked to the future with hope, courage, and anticipation, knowing that the extraordinary encounter in a simple cafe had set the stage for a life filled with connection, opportunity, and meaning. The manager finally closed his notebook, reflecting on the remarkable events he had witnessed, realizing that sometimes life offered moments of magic and transformation that could change the course of entire lives forever.